Hey, sorry for the interruption, but we wanted to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by Spotify for Podcasters. Really cool app. Josiah and I use it for every single show that we bring to you every week. You can edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so you can start creating as soon as you log into the platform. You can easily distribute your podcasts to Spotify and everywhere else the podcasts are heard, just like we do every single week. You can also create video podcasts on Spotify, which is really cool. And of course, you can earn money like I'm doing right now by including ads and even podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free. There's no catch. We really love it. We use it every single week. So we encourage you to go download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right, let's get back to the show.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Print on Demand Cast. Thank you for pressing play. Thank you for downloading, subscribing, whatever you did to get here. We thank you. You have our appreciation, and I want to say benevolence, but I feel like that's not applicable in this particular scenario.
I
so
think you're right.
We just forego that word. So anyway, as always, joining me, Travis Ross, not from Make Your Mark Design this time, Nene from Casa del Ross, there in an undisclosed location in Colorado. Travis, welcome. How was your day? We sprang forward today. Mm-hmm. We lost an hour of sleep. I, for one, am feeling it for sure. How about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we stayed up kind of late last night, and then the morning came, and I think I'm kind of tired, but I know we said on a previous episode that when we started bulking out these episodes, we weren't going to give you guys all of the information about like where we were in the timeline, because this episode's not going to come out for a couple weeks anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
But you know now that we recorded this on Sunday, March 12th. Yes,
it is when we all sprang forward, and myself, a busy day today. Had church this morning and was on the team for all three services, and so it was like an 8.5 hour day with losing an hour of sleep. We were up late last night too, hanging out with some friends, from Loveland, and I realized that, like, halfway through hanging out, I looked at the guy. His name is Asher, my friend. His name is Asher, and his wife. And I said, "Dude, we're both on team tomorrow. What are we doing? Like, this is we did not plan this out well. We're both going to be very tired." And ultimately, he was an hour late to sound check. So the time change definitely got that, which is funny because last night he was like, "Man, it's so funny that people say to spring, put your clocks forward and." Our phones do it by themselves. It's not like I'm going to miss an alarm tomorrow, which is a famous last words scenario as the rest of the day played out. But all that being said, it's going well, and looking forward to another busy week ahead. I'm sure you guys are as well there at Make Your Mark Design. Another busy week, I'm sure.
Always. Yeah. Things are slower right now as far as like production, just number of orders are down, but we are taking advantage of that and trying to, come up with ways, put a whole list of things together last week and in our planner, and kind of try to go through all those and assign those out and to different people on the team and try to accomplish some stuff while it's slow. So when it speeds back up, we're obviously just trying to increase revenue and different ways. We've launched a couple new products, learning a lot more than perhaps we realized we needed to learn
Yeah.
particularly on Etsy. We're trying to redo our whole process for listing on Amazon and Walmart as well. So there's just a lot of things going on, and we have the ability to do. We've got some really cool products. We're actually going to redo Deco, some of the
Nice.
back end stuff, and
Some of the
add
catalog.
some of the catalog, add some new products, and then basically send an email blast to all of our people and say, hey, we have all these new things, and here's the new features, and try to see if we can kickstart some sales with those guys.
Yeah, I was going to say you might actually find some stores that are dormant, some folks that have stores that, and when you re-engage them in that way, I could see that it being beneficial. Let me ask you, this isn't in our notes or anything like that, and we'll get to the point of interest here shortly, but from your perspective as a business owner, I know this has been, it's not your first rodeo, it's not your first post Q4 season, but is it hard sometimes as you are in a slower season do you have to be intentional about preserving the perspective of, okay, we're slow numbers wise, but we are refining systems and we are making progress, and we are, because sometimes when the numbers slow down, the tendency is to be like, oh my God, what are we going to do? we're failing. Sometimes with lower volume, it can be hard to understand that, okay, we're just refining systems and building or kind of strengthening that side of things. And of course, always trying to get more volume, but it's not going to be Q4 volume necessarily, because that is its own event. So has that been hard for you, or is it easy now to maintain that perspective, having been so many post Q4 seasons past, or how does that generally work as you approach this slow time of year?
I mean, it's never fun to see your profit and loss end with a negative, with a negative number.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always shocking, and you don't want that, but it's during the non Q4 months. It is hard to see an actual profit, in this business, because it does slow down so much. And like, so you have to figure out other ways to either reduce. I mean, you have two options in a business. You either reduce your operating expenses or you increase your revenues. That's it. And so as revenues go down, it's like, well, what do we want to do? Well, I'm trying to focus on the increasing our revenues thing, because I don't, you can go through and you can like cut subscriptions and, save $20 here, $50 here, $100 there. But when you talk about like lowering your operations costs, really a lot of times you're talking about laying people off. And we have such a great team at Making Mark Design. I really don't want to do that. That's kind of a last, option for us. So, but to answer your question, no, I don't think it ever gets easy or I ever get used to it, I guess. I think you said it's still just as hard as it was the first time.
Sure.
And so, I mean, if you are in your guys' business and, out there listening, if you are seeing slower sales, and just know that that's kind of par for the course right now. We're getting ready to have, Father's Day and Mother's Day, and then Father's Day. And those two potential gift giving holidays could be very good for print on demand. And so you really should be taking the opportunity to use this downtime to prepare for those. We're putting together products right now that are specifically for Mother's Day and specifically for Father's Day. So we can be ready for those, to capitalize on them. And then after that, you got another kind of dry time, for a little while. So trying to find products that have different seasonal, like no one's probably going to buy a hoodie in July. I mean, some people will, and people probably aren't going to buy a tank top in December, so having some type of, it's the same thing with like coffee mugs. People don't buy a lot of coffee mugs in the summer, because it's a hot drink and it's hot outside. So like thinking along those lines can help you target specific products that you might want to add to your store that are going to be more seasonal. They might sell all year, but you're probably going to sell more in a specific season based on summer, winter type things, or
Yeah.
gift giving, non-gift giving, evergreen versus holiday specific, trending products versus, again, evergreen. So,
Sure.
but having a mix of those things is really important. So you can continue to have that. You can mitigate against those real massive dips, in your revenue.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a way longer answer than you wanted.
Well, no, it's fine. It's fine. Just, I know people out there listening might be experiencing this kind of lull for the first time. And it's one thing to know, like, hey, people said this is normal, or I was told I should expect this. It's different to it's the difference between like knowing in the head knowledge and then experiencing it and actually gaining the wisdom from the experience. Even though you had the knowledge that it was supposed to be this way, you gain a lot of insight and wisdom from actually walking through it. So just to hear from someone like yourself who's like, hey, it never, in this instance, it doesn't get easier, but just know, like, here's some things that I've learned. So people out there, if you're listening and you're experiencing that lull, it is to be expected. And again, if you have questions, or you need, want some insight, reach out to us on the Facebook group as well. If you're feeling like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in this season of kind of that lower volume, you can always reach out to us. printondemandcast.com/Facebook. That's the Facebook group, and we'd love to chat and just kind of help you process or talk or let you process in the group or whatever that looks like. Is definitely welcome. So, but with that, we will go straight into this week's point of interest.
Well, howdy, partner. Welcome to the point of interest part of the POD cast. So grab your hat and hold on tight, because we got some learning to do.
Every time. Okay, so Travis, you were telling me as we were waffling off air, which might sound wrong to those who don't know what the waffle section of this show means, but as we were waffling before we pressed record, you were like, hey, check this out, like this new function that I discovered, and kind of a marriage of two things, I guess software as a solution kind of platforms that we've talked about in the past, kind of coming together and in this kind of unique marriage. So why don't you tell the folks, what are we talking about for the point of interest this week?
Yeah. So earlier in this week, I guess if you're speaking of things to do when sales are down and trying to create, take advantage of that time, create more products, whatever the thing is. I've been looking a lot at the ChatGPT stuff and the AI stuff. And I saw this video earlier in the last week, and there were two moments in that video. It's like a 40-minute long video that I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And so basically, what I shared with Josiah and what I wanted to share with you guys is this functionality that in Canva, that basically by using ChatGPT to kind of create some data for you, Canva actually has a bulk edit feature. And I didn't know this until earlier this week. It's so funny because a good friend of ours, Nate McAllister, put out a video the day after I discovered this and was really working with it and doing some things with it. And yesterday I actually used it to create a bunch of social media posts for our Instagram, like a bunch of quotes and things like that. So without actually demoing it, it's kind of hard to explain, but I'll do my best. Sure. Basically what you're doing is you're using ChatGPT and you're giving it a prompt, and you say, so I'll just go over my Instagram thing that I did yesterday. I said, ChatGPT, go out and find some well-known print-on-demand, people, and give me some of their best quotes. Give me 10 of their best quotes and who it is attributed to. And so it went out and did that. And so I said, okay, thank you, ChatGPT. I want you to organize this particular data into a table for me. And the table, column 1 should have the quote. Column 2 should have who it's attributed to. And then I went a step further and I said, also, or column 3 needs to have some something that I could use to post on a social media channel like Instagram and include hashtags. So it basically created this table for me. And so you can copy and paste that table, throw it into Google Sheets, and then come over to Canva. I created basically a template. And then I had, this is the area that I want to have, like, the quote itself. And then underneath is like the attribution part. And then I put like our logo on it and just, made it, kind of branded it. It's like an 80s thing. If you can check it out on our Instagram. There's probably a couple of them that have posted since then, because I scheduled all 10 of them out yesterday also, which is something else that, believe it or not, Canva can do. I'll get to that.
Yeah, which is crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah, I had no idea. And that was the second jaw drop moment in that video. But so anyway, you go in there and you tie the CSV to these fields, and then you hit go basically, and it just opens up a new document and puts them all there for you. So you have 10. I had 10. I had to, adjust them because some are longer and some are shorter. I had to maybe, make the fonts a little smaller and, do some stuff like that. Manipulate it a little bit. And so I'm glad I didn't do 1,000 or 100 or, or whatever. But 10 was enough for sure. So then what you can do is you can go into, if you have a pro account on Canva, you can tie your social media channels to it, and you can use Canva as a scheduler. Now, the problem was my social media that we have, like Print on Demand Cast and all that stuff under, also has a Canva account tied to that email address, because my wife has one, has an email that she uses for all of her stuff. So we have 2 Canva accounts. And so it was like, hey, this email has another Canva account, so you can't use it. So I wasn't able to do it that way, but I used another scheduling tool that I had access to and scheduled them all out. But for print on demand, I mean, you already are probably thinking what you could do. I mean, if you had a list, you could say, hey, ChatGPT, give me 25 funny quotes or funny sayings that would go on t-shirts that are targeted to be sold to somebody who's gifting something to a mechanic, or a nurse, or a fisherman, or a mom for Mother's Day, or whatever. You want doing specific t-shirt designs, right? Take all that, take all of those, open up if you're on Merch by Amazon or Amazon, what is it called? Merch on Demand now. Open up a 4,200 by 4,600 template, choose a font, and then literally enter those things into this bulk create, hit the button, and you have 25 new designs, text-based designs. If you want to get crazy, you could put, different elements on it or do whatever you wanted to do, doctor it up in Canva. But at least for the text part, bam, you're done just like that. And you've got 25, new designs you can put on Merch by Amazon. But you can take this so much further. You could do it with coffee mugs. You can, all of these things. You could even have Canva has in there. They have like kind of those Etsy looking flat t-shirt mock-ups. Put all the colors in there, and then just go one at a time. I'll put all of your font, or all the one quote on one. Bam, you're done with that. That's that listings, mock-ups for that one. Next, boom, and you could do all the colors, and then you could have other mock-ups in that. So you have, instead of just 5 or 6 colors, you have 5 or 6 colors, and then you have another 4 or 5 or 6 other pictures or other mock-ups that you have manipulated the text on those, and it's the same. It's the same. I mean, it just bulk creates all of these things. So, dude, this rabbit hole goes really deep.
There's lots you can do, and I feel like that's a common thread in anything that is ChatGPT related. This rabbit hole goes deep, my friends. Be sure to check that out. I mean, if you have questions, again, you can let us know. I know that, obviously Canva has a free account. Like Travis said, if you have the pro account, you can schedule stuff out, which is news to me. I had no idea that was even a possibility. So that's a whole new level for me when it comes to Canva's, capabilities and stuff like that. So yeah, be sure to check that out. If you haven't checked out ChatGPT before, we've referenced it a handful of times in prior shows, and Canva is just a good tool to have if you're looking for something that's easy, that's free to create designs. And of course, there's pros and cons of each free or pro account, but we've detailed that in other episodes as well. And so maybe we can try and link whatever episode that was, because I think we've talked about free
free editing tools,
and free editing tools and that kind of stuff in the past. So yeah, I think definitely it's just another way that AI is kind of revolutionizing the way we print on demand, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Definitely revolutionizing it. So, but yeah. So anything else before we transition to the main event?
No, I mean, you're probably going to want a Canva Pro account. I think it's like $100 a year because you can export the transparent backgrounds.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not sure if bulk the bulk feature is a pro only account or a pro only thing either. I'm not 100% sure. I heard one guy say it wasn't, and I heard another guy say it was. So yeah, I have a pro account, so I don't know how to. I mean, I could have signed up for another account, but I wasn't going to do that. So. So yeah, if you have a free account, let us know if you have access. Oh, where it is. So if you go on the left column, if you go all the way down, there's an apps button. You can click in that apps button, and at the top, just search for bulk. What's it called again? Do you remember? What did I call it? It is called Bulk Create. And if you go all the way down to where it says apps on the left, and there's a search bar at the top, search Canva apps. If you do Bulk Create, you'll see it there. And like I said, if you have a free account, it may not be there. I don't know, but let us know if you do see it and you have a free account, because I'd like to know.
There you go. That is this week's point of interest, and we are going to move directly into this week's main event.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main event.
All right. Well, Travis, another thing we talked about as we kind of chatted about what this episode is going to be about. You shared some feedback with me that you had received, I don't know, a handful of days ago, maybe two, maybe over the weekend. And so that kind of informed a little bit about, okay, so here's the thing. I mean, obviously you know this. I think everyone listening knows this, that you'll never be able to please everyone's preferences as to content that you produce around something that is so vast, and there's so many people doing it, and there's so many opinions, and especially in social media age, everyone has a platform to express their opinion, good, bad, and different. And so I think there's definitely wisdom in the fact that with every piece of feedback, positive and negative, mostly negative though, you can at least glean something to better yourself. I think that's in general, not just specific to this podcast. I think in life, if you're willing to receive a critique, it might not feel the best, but you can glean some things to improve yourself moving forward. So all of that to say, with the feedback that we received, I don't think it's something that it's like, oh God, let's go back, let's scrap everything, go back to the drawing table and reformat this entire thing, because this one guy on this platform maybe doesn't care for what we're doing, but we can kind of sift through it and find the gold that's applicable to us in that feedback, which I think is definitely, there's a maturity to be able to do that. Obviously, a lot of people enjoy the shenanigans, the dad jokes, the general nonsense that we, because I guess we don't take ourselves too seriously, which I think is a benefit, in my opinion, because we're just, two guys also trying to figure it out, sharing what we figured out up until this point while we're still figuring it out. So all of that to say, Travis, you received some feedback that kind of informed a little bit of how we wanted to approach this week's main event. So tell those listening not exactly, but in summation, what that feedback was and why we kind of decided to do the main event that we're going to present today.
Yeah. So, the feedback it was multifaceted. It had different things, different things to say about the show and the way we present information. And, they said, there is good information that comes on the show, but a lot of times when we have, guests on, it's like, it's just an advertisement and we never talk about like the bad stuff that, goes on, with the different things that we, different platforms that we promote or, people that we have on the show that have like a YouTube channel or a course. I think we've had one person on the show that had a course years ago, or I can say years because we're about. I can actually say years.
Yeah, I actually looked today, and this is a complete side note, but I think we're about 20 episodes away exactly from a 2-year or 3-year. Sorry,
3-year
milestone. So you can say years.
Yeah. So, but point taken, because we do have people on and we allow them to say, hey, here's this amazing thing. And then a lot of times, sometimes we have an affiliate link, sometimes we don't. But we just kind of let them say whatever they want to say about their thing. And we don't really share the bad thing, which would kind of be awkward to do with the guest on for one
Tell
thing.
Us why
but
the thing you're offering sucks.
I think so that was one side. And then the other side of it was kind of like, we never talk about like the bad side about print on demand or the hard things or the things that are, and I don't think that's 100% true either.
Yeah.
But I did take the point and I was like, maybe we should have an episode and just talk about kind of the seedy underbelly of print on demand. I think that there's a lot of criticism out there about print on demand and a lot of people say, it's too saturated now or this or that. And all these people that, people like us who are, spouting knowledge or, people that have courses or people that are doing things in the industry. Well, they all started a long time ago and they have all this history and that's the only reason they're successful. Which I disagree with that. But there is some truth to that. I mean, I have had more success than somebody who's going to start this year, and I probably will still have more success than them as they continue to grow their business, but they could blow me out of the water eventually, who's to say?
Yeah. And I guess
point taken.
Yeah, for sure.
What were you going to say?
No, I was just saying, I guess the definition of success is relative to the person talking. You know what I mean? Like your definition of success is different from that person who's in it for a year, and they could have had massive success for where they're at in that journey. And you could have already achieved, experienced, and surpassed that particular level of success, but it doesn't necessarily discount the success of the person that's just started or is a year in or whatever, if that makes sense. So I guess the success is such a subjective word Yeah,
because it's all based on comparison, and I remember, one of my favorite interviews I think it's episode 20 with Robin Johnson. It's just a general business kind of podcast talking about business. And one of the things she said was, don't compare your chapter 1 with someone else's chapter 20. Or something along those lines. And I always thought that's such a great piece of advice. And it definitely is applicable to somebody starting out today. They look at me or, somebody else out there, another YouTuber that, is screenshotting their $1 million December or whatever, standing in their garage with their Lambo or whatever, totally. And all it does is just, it just really, really pushes this whole comparison thing, which is just not healthy. And there's no joy or happiness or peace that comes from comparing yourself to others.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, you put your head down and you work and you see results, and the results may or may not be what you expect, but you're going to have results, one way or the other. And it really is kind of a, taking responsibility type thing. And so if you put a lot of work in, you do it the right way, you listen to the right people that have done it before, and you apply some of that stuff, you can see results. Again, you might not see the same results that someone saw in 2015 because Etsy was a baby, or Amazon
totally
was,
totally
different. Yeah. But you can still see results for today and see results that it's not, that's like one of the points that we were going to talk about, but it's never too late to start, I guess. I will say that. But let's jump into the list. What do you say? Let's kind of just go through, what do we got? 6 of them. So these are, these are not, this is not an exhaustive list, but this is 6 kind of, I like the seedy underbelly. How do we include the number 6 and the word seedy underbelly?
6 seedy statistics about 6 seeds of the seedy underbelly of print on demand.
Well, we need to ask ChatGPT. Please help us with this title.
Please give me a title.
Yeah. It probably will, but we'll see. So let's go ahead and jump in to the seedy underbelly.
Yeah, let's do it. I wish we had a bumper for that, because it's an interesting, the underbelly. Okay, so the first one that we want to just touch on is, and to be fair, okay, I do feel like we have touched on these each individually at different times in different episodes, because I don't think it's fair to say that we never touch on the hard things to expect or to plan on. I think generally speaking, for this podcast, we want to leave people with a pleasant taste in their mouth or feeling as they wrap the episode, not like, God dang, I suck at this, or wow, this is gonna suck, because that was never the intent, was to let you know, like, hey, there's this thing that's doable, but it's gonna suck, and you're gonna want to end up singing the I Quit song.
I quit. I quit. I quit. I quit, Mr. White.
So don't sing that song. It's gonna be okay. We want to encourage you, and if you don't know what that clip is from, it's called That Thing You Do, and it's a great movie, and go watch it. So, number 1, limited control over production, which we've talked about when using third party, especially if you're drop shipping. Obviously, if you have production in-house, that's a different story. But we do know that the majority of you listening are all primarily in that stage of drop shipping. So we've talked about in the past that it is risky. You really have to vet and make sure that third-party platform that you're using to drop ship is doing quality work, because you're entrusting the production and fulfillment of your orders to somebody else. So you have limited control over the quality of the products and the shipping times. You're going to want to get samples. You're going to want to get it in hand to be able to feel the hand of the garment and see the quality of print, because you really are putting a lot of trust equity into a company that maybe hasn't necessarily earned it up until that point. So you're basically loaning them a large amount of trust to present your brand, to present your shop in the best light, which can be very dangerous. And we've talked about this before. So when you're shopping third-party providers, you really do need to, especially if you're able to call them on the phone. Obviously, a Printful, a Teespring, I don't really know the success rate that you'll have in getting a representative on the phone to really put the screws to them, because I just don't think I don't think they have the department for that, if I'm to be completely honest. But if you're entrusting it to a local shop or a smaller shop that you can actually talk to someone, you really do need to screen and vet those providers pretty rigorously, because you are trusting them to present your product in a quality way, which is very risky. And sometimes if you don't do that, it can end up in a disaster, and then you have a mess on your hands that you have to figure out how to fix, with you essentially being the middleman. And that's a super difficult spot to be in.
Yeah, you said it all. I mean, we actually had a conversation with somebody that is looking to use us here recently, and she's asking all the right questions, and she's got a decent business. And we're only taking, a couple of their products to start, because again, they want to see how we do. How is this going to work? Is this, and then because if it doesn't work, she'll take back that product and go somewhere else, and so, and that might be something you want to consider if if you're considering using somebody else, or, just give them just one part of your business. Don't give them the whole thing, and test them out that way. There's so many, when you're drop shipping print on demand, I mean, the quality of the product is basically your whole business. And so it's pretty dang important that, that you get this right, and you get those samples, and you actually, if you can, talk to somebody. I mean, a lot of those bigger companies, they'll have a lot of that information online in their FAQ. I know like Printify has like an average order ship time, like for each of their different vendors that are on that site. So you can kind of look and go, okay, the average for this one is 1.2 days. The average for this is 2.2 days. Well, I'm going to get both of these samples, and I'm going to remember that the 2.2 day, it better be really nice, way nicer than the 1.2. But if they're the same, I'm going with the 1.2, so you can do things like that without talking to anybody, I guess, at some of those bigger companies. But you just don't have the control because you're not doing it. And that is a downside. You are really, really fully depending on other people to do your business. And this was, really full on display in 2020 when, Printful and Printify had 2, 3, 4 week backlogs of stuff because they couldn't get the product in, and they couldn't open up facilities, or people were sick, or they weren't coming in, or that, and they had all of these, had to keep them so far away that maybe they could only run half of the machines, because they were too close, or whatever the issues were. They were so backed up, and you had to answer those customer emails. Where's my stuff? Why is it so late? And I mean, thankfully, everyone was kind of dealing with the COVID thing together. And so there was some grace for that, but still it was not pleasant. And I mean, we were doing our own stuff, and we were still having a hard time and having to answer a lot of questions, because just the shipping in of itself, the post office that's where we depended on them. That's, a whole nother deal. And they were failing us.
PTSD, man. That's a lot of flashbacks that are hard.
Emotional damage.
For sure. So, okay. Number 2, Travis, higher production costs. Let's chat. I'll let you take this one. Let's chat a little bit about why that can be and is challenging when going into print on demand.
I mean, I think everybody, expects the price of a print on demand garment to be more than the price of a screen printed garment.
Yes.
Particularly when you're talking about at scale. I mean, but the benefit, of course, is that, no screen printer in their right mind is going to give you the ability to screen print, an order of one garment, at over and over again. So, I mean, there's a obvious trade-off there. But you just have to know that going into it, it's going to cost more for your brand to go the print on demand route than if you had an established brand and you could go to a screen printer and go, okay, I need 100 prints. Here are the size things. and that's going to cost way less. You're going to have a lot more margin on your products. You're going to, there's going to be a lot more gross profit, but, at the end of the day. And then if you're using like a platform like a Printify or a Printful, Printful's prices are pretty dang high. Printify has kind of, since it's more of a marketplace, it has kind of a price sensitivity, because they're going, the different places that are that are on Printify are looking at the other people, and they're probably adjusting their prices accordingly. And so it's probably a little less. I have heard some, because you have different things, you have different levels of quality, and Printful does all of their stuff in-house. So there's that. So again, another trade-off. But if you are using those platforms, you're going to spend a lot more than if you produce those garments or those goods in-house. My cost to do a t-shirt or a coffee mug or whatever it is way less than what I could buy it for on Printful and Printify. Now, I have to do it. And I also have to put up the money up front to buy the equipment to be able to do it. But it's like when we talked on a recent episode about how to sublimate a coffee mug, that the amount of equipment that you have to buy and the price for that is low enough that it might be a good jumping off point. That's how we got started, because it was a low enough cost, buried entry, and I didn't have to pay what everyone else was paying. So I could maybe sell it at a little less and still make good money. So basically you're going to have higher production costs in print on demand, and you have to build that into your pricing, into your price structure, and how that's going to work. And so you might not be able to sell a t-shirt for, $14.99 unless you're on merch by Amazon, and you're not going to get any royalty, and you're just trying to get traction on it so you can raise the price later. But you get the idea.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Number 3, we're going to talk about limited branding options. And I think to preface this, I know that there are a lot of different people in the industry that are trying to provide a solution to this very real obstacle, I guess, or problem, I guess, if you want to call it that. But when it comes to, especially if you're trying to establish a brand on a print-on-demand platform, that's not just a novelty t-shirt, I don't foresee people really trying to really uniquely brand a novelty t-shirt necessarily, at least in my mind. This is kind of, if you're wanting to launch a brand that has a certain aesthetic, certain feel, certain designs. And when I say branding, it's like, custom tags, on the back, or a custom logo on the sleeve, or, there's a company that I buy from called Disciple Threads, and they have a custom little tag that's kind of sewn into the bottom of their t-shirts, like that kind of stuff that can kind of differentiate you from the competitor, just because it looks a little cleaner, has a nice polished look, it looks a little bit more branded. There's not a lot of there can be a limited amount of options when doing this, because you're really, when you're partnering with that third-party platform, you're beholden to what they can and cannot do at the time that you acquire their services. So I know with What For Apparel, there was a season of time that we didn't do sleeve prints, and and so that was a very big, well, I want my logo on the sleeve, and it's like, man, we're just not set up to do sleeve prints right now. It's not something that we can effectively do. This is before we discovered, obviously, screen print transfers, and this is all, of course,
or DTF or
DTF, which is, that particular thing is if you're doing your own in-house production. But as someone that was serving in that third-party fulfillment partner role, there was a season where we had to tell people, like, hey, we're just not set up for that. We can do it on the back up, towards the collar or whatever. Is that work for you? So there can be some very limited options when it comes to trying to brand yourself, which just means that it's just a little harder to stand out from the crowd sometimes, unless you, and that goes back to the first point of vetting your third party vendor that you're using. if you're wanting something that's more branded, you're going to need to find a fulfillment partner that can check all of those boxes for you.
Yeah, and there's not a lot out there. I know. I think that this is, and we've had a couple people on the show that we've talked about this, but I think this is a problem in print on demand that I think some companies are trying to solve. And there are companies out there that'll like put an insert into the bag, or they'll let you use branded bags for your clients. But that kind of goes against the whole principle of print on demand, because none of those things are like, you don't sell a t-shirt and then go, oh, well, let's also print a bag for this thing to go in. No, you buy 1,000 bags up front and they're sitting on a shelf, or or you buy a bunch of, DTF transfers that have medium, small, and large and extra, and all the sizes and all that stuff. And they're sitting on a shelf. So as they come in, you can, I guess you get the idea. It's companies are trying to help print on demand become a viable option for brands because they see that as a huge market, which for sure totally makes sense. But it's not easy. It's a lot easier to get a sewn tag when when you're buying 500 shirts. Even a couple of weeks ago with LAT, is it David? Yeah. And he was talking about how they have a service that will they'll rip out the tag, the Gildan tag, or what are they? Oh, I guess it's not Gildan because it's LAT. They'll rip out the LAT tag and do, your custom thing there. But again, they're not going to do that for one. Yeah. No. You've got to buy, a bunch of
buy in bulk to,
Yeah. So, and you got to sit on that inventory and wait till it sells. It's basically, you might as well just print the freaking image on the shirt, and just get it screen printed, at that point. But I digress.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember, RIP TSC Apparel, our first distributors that we used here locally, they offered the same kind of thing. But of course, the caveat there was you had to provide the actual tags that they then stitched or sewn into. Because they would rip out the Gildan tag and then they would sew your own branded tag in, but they weren't producing those tags. You had to buy those tags from somebody, send them. So there was that extra cost that was, for us, it was like, oh, well, that is a little bit of a, that's kind of a non-starter then, because that's not really what we thought it was. And so all of that to say, there are people who are working on solutions, but to Travis's point, it's going to be something where you still have to make it worth their while to provide this solution, because it's an extra workflow for them, basically. So number 4, shipping costs. I think Travis talked about this when we talked about the horrific year of 2020 and the post office debacle of mid-COVID. That was just absolutely awful.
That's terrible.
So all of that to say, depending on your pricing strategy and the products you offer, shipping costs can really be detrimental to you. We talked about sublimating coffee mugs. Figuring out a shipping solution for those coffee mugs can be detrimental to the bottom line. You have to figure that into your pricing, because it's going to cost money to do that. And especially if you're doing international orders, you got to figure that out quickly, because we did a lot of international volume with some of our partners that we had at What For Apparel, and it was very evident very quickly the first time we sold an international item, and it was like, oh, we need to go revise that pricing matrix in Deco post haste, because we did not realize shipping to this XYZ country was that, we thought we knew it was expensive. It was that expensive. That's crazy expensive. So shipping costs is something that you really have to take time and wrap your head around and figure out how to build it into your pricing strategy, because it's going to be something that can be detrimental to you if you don't get out ahead of that, kind of preempt what that looks like.
Yeah. And this isn't something that is any different for a print on demand, or a screen printed shop. Because if they screen print a bunch and they hold them on the shelf and then they ship as you go, it's more it's on-demand shipping really. But you pre-buy and then so there's screen printing shops out there that are doing this. So it's not like, oh, this is unique to print on demand. It's just something that when people are saying, I sold $100,000 on Etsy, in print on demand t-shirts. Well, they didn't make $100,000. And then they say, and then I sold them for $25 and I only paid $10 a shirt through such and such company. We also paid $3 to $4 per shirt to ship it, and so that's another cost that, I think we all realize, but I don't know that it's, put out there as often as it should be, because it's a massive, like percentage wise, it's a massive part of your operating expenses, or your business expenses. It's a big part of it, because every single product that you sell has to be shipped. Right. Yep. And so that's every single product that you sell is that there's a percentage of that sale that's going to go to shipping. Now you can obviously add the shipping afterwards and pass that on to the customer, but are you getting as many sales as if you did a free shipping and raised your price a little bit? I don't know. You should test that. But it's something that, we couldn't leave off this list, I guess, because it is something that's kind of a big deal and sometimes it gets brushed over.
Yes, for sure. All right. So 2 more here as we approach the 50-minute mark.
Next one's a big one.
Yes. Number 5, competition.
Dun, dun.
Here's the thing about, man, we keep referencing 2020. It makes me so sad. COVID really, I think, helped expose people to, I just across the board, whether we're talking print on demand or not, but like work from home, remote work, that kind of stuff, online, because everyone was at home.
Right.
And some people were, unfortunately losing jobs, being unemployed, and having to figure out how they can make money. And print on demand was one of those things where it felt like, I know for us at Well for Apparel, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys, it was we felt super fortunate to be running a company that's primary lifeblood was in the one marketplace that did not get affected adversely during COVID, and that's the e-commerce marketplace. We were able to still sell, and we, people were buying more because they were home and they had nothing to do. But that to say, there was an influx of people who were coming into this industry because of the realization of, oh, okay, I can do this from home, and everyone's going to be working from home, so maybe I should start this. And we've talked about this a lot, but the misnomer of, well, I can just start this and make millions of dollars on merch on demand, or you know what I mean, or an Etsy shop, or okay, it's going to be this easy. And you have a lot of competition. You have a lot of people who are thieves in the respect that they're stealing designs and not really wanting to do the work, and maybe hopping onto your Amazon listing, or we've talked about that. People just trying to steal that buy box, or be the one to beat you to that sale on that same listing. And so there is a lot of competition, because now it is kind of the cat's out of the bag, where much like with Amazon FBA, for a while it was like, hey, we're in on this thing, man, and you got to know the code, and we'll let you in and teach you how this works. And then eventually it was like everyone knew about Amazon. I see on TikTok all the time Amazon FBA ads and business ads and stuff. So it's like it's not that best kept secret anymore. People are aware that this industry is available, and they are going to take a crack at it and see how if the juice is worth the squeeze, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who tells you that there's no competition is lying to you, and I don't really think anybody's probably telling you that.
I don't know who would say that.
Because I can attest. There are way more people doing this than when I started. To your point, 2020 brought a lot of people in. There's a lot of competition for people because again, people were working from home, and it was a low barrier to entry type thing that people could start from home. And so, yeah, I mean, there is competition, and that is a part of the seedy underbelly that, and even, I mean, like I said before, I still think it's possible to succeed, but I don't think it's as easy as it was. And maybe that's one of the things that doesn't get spoken out by the gurus and the people with courses and stuff. But it's true. It's not as easy as it used to be. And it's going to take more work. I still think you can succeed, but I think it's harder. And, you know, so, I mean, that's really it. At the end of the day, it's just harder to do than it was. It's the same thing with, like you say, Amazon FBA. When we started, it was amazing. And I've heard people that started before me that was like, he was even more amazing, you know. And now, these days it's a lot more difficult to do, you know, FBA and private label and wholesale and retail arbitrage and stuff like that. People are still successful at it, but if you're just coming into it today, it's a lot harder and than it was, because there's more competition. I don't think it's saturated, but there is definitely more competition.
Yeah, for sure. And I think to that point, obviously, I wouldn't like you said, it's not saturated. I wouldn't necessarily, if someone wanted to get into print on demand and came to us and said, hey, I want to do this, what do you think? It's like, yeah, there's definitely opportunity there. I think you definitely have to, you know, we talked about what is your why, you know, which is a question you have to ask yourself in any endeavor that you're going into. Like, why are you doing this? I think if you have that and you plan accordingly and you build and you come at it with one intention and two, the realization that it is going to be the long game. It's not necessarily going to be a get rich quick thing. I think when you approach it that way, you'll be able to build it in such a way that you'll be able to kind of outlast and rise above some of those people who are just coming in for the potential quick cash grab.
Right.
You know what I mean? And build a solid business that way when you approach it from a different perspective other than, well, I just want to see if I can make a couple $1,000s. And maybe that is your motive, which is great. It just might not be that sustainable, and you might find yourself having to kind of retool your approach a little bit. But all that to say, competition's out there, but there's still definitely a lot of pie to have, a lot of slices of pie available. So number 6, the last one, customer service. And my God, I feel like we have talked about this a lot because, you know, we've talked about if you're using a third-party platform. I always tell the story of when I worked for Verizon. We were a authorized retailer, which is to say that we weren't corporate. Internally, we didn't have the functionality of a corporate store. We were basically a franchise, like a McDonald's, for lack of a better term. Like, we had the Golden Arches, but it wasn't owned by corporate McDonald's. It was just this local business owner who owned, if that makes sense. So, but to the customer, when there was a problem, when there was a service outage, when they had a bill question, they didn't care if we were or were not an authorized retailer. To them, I was wearing a Verizon polo, so you are Verizon. And I don't care about the difference of an authorized retailer and corporate store. My phone's broken. My bill's too high. The service isn't working. I can't get coverage, whatever. So all of that to say, to relate it to when you're using a third-party vendor, you have to understand that the customer doesn't know who Printful is, and they do not care because they're working with you directly.
They bought it from you.
They bought it from you. They don't care about Printful. They don't care about where it's coming from. So you really have to be preemptive in understanding, you know, Printful's shipping, and of course, just using them as an example, but their shipping times, their shipping methods, what they can expect, because you don't want to be in a position where you are the middleman, because that loses a ton. I talk about trust equity earlier in the episode. That loses so much trust equity with your customer because you look like a guy that doesn't know what the hell you're talking about. And that is the quickest way for people to hop on your store and say, had a question. He gave me some nonsense answer about some other place in California. I don't know what he's talking about. All I know, my shirt ain't here. My son's pissed because his birthday present isn't in his hand or whatever. So
Right.
you really have to, be preemptive in what could happen customer service wise, and realize that you are the face of your company, regardless of if you are outsourcing production or not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the same. I mean, make and mark design. We, for us, we send something out, and maybe it's the wrong thing, or it didn't print quite the right way, and then we get stuff from people who use us, and it looks bad on us, and it's the same thing. Customer service is always a pain in the butt, and for anybody, but particularly if you have no hand in doing the thing and can't being the middleman is always going to be a little less. It's just hard, because you don't know what happened actually, and so you get a thing from the customer, and you like, well, give me a minute and I'll look into it. And then you have to go back to the other person. And if it's who knows how long it's going to take to get the answer for them. Meanwhile, the customer's waiting. You finally get an answer back, and then you have to then, give it back to the customer and hope that it's enough to appease them. And if it takes too long, then they get even more upset. And, it can just go south really fast. So customer service and print on demand, particularly really drop shipping in general, but print on demand drop shipping, like if you are selling on Etsy and you're using a Printful or a Printify or a Make and Mark Design, any of those, it can be hard. It can be very difficult. If there is some type of issue, that a porch pirate stole it. I mean, what are you going to do then? The tracking says it's delivered. Whose fault is it? Well, you're probably going to have to eat that. You know what I mean? Because it's not your print on demand provider's fault that it says delivered and they're saying they don't have it. That's probably on you. So all of that to say, that's a challenge. And, so those are 6 of, kind of the seedy underbelly of print on demand that may not get talked about as much as it should. And you should know about if you're considering starting, or, if you're wanting to get into this thing, or you're wanting to even produce it on your own. So limited control over production, higher production costs compared to like screen printing and things like that. There's limited branding options. So if you are trying to create a brand, that's going to be a challenge. Shipping costs are that's just the cost of doing business, but they are a significant percentage of your total outgoing cash. Competition / saturation. There's a lot of competition. I don't think it's necessarily saturated, but it's going to be more competitive than it was 5 years ago. I guarantee it. Pretty much anything is, but especially print on demand for sure. And then customer service. It's just something, again, that you have to be able to be okay with, being in the middle between your customer and somebody who you're depending on to deliver a quality product in a timely manner. So those are the 6.
Yep. There you go. 6 seed the underbelly aspects of we don't know. We'll work on the title. Just we'll get back to you on that. But thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the Print on Demand Cast. We greatly appreciate you guys. And we want to be here to help benefit and better you guys and give you the tools. The tagline we make shows to help you make sales isn't just something quippy that we came up with. It's genuinely what we want to do here on the Print on Demand Cast. So if you guys have any questions about the 6 things we talked about today, or maybe you have something else that we should touch on, I know inflation is a huge issue and that affects everything that's happening right now in every aspect of business. So if you have, if you have any suggestions for the show, this episode, this main event was fueled by a person that gave us some honest feedback. And so if you guys have that kind of feedback for the show, you can reach out to us in a multitude of ways, and we're obviously open to that feedback. We want to hear from you guys, especially those of you that have been with us from the very beginning, because you know the show, the content, us, and so we definitely welcome that feedback. So you can go to printondemancast.com/Facebook to join the Facebook group and start that conversation, and join the community and let us know what you think of the show. And if you have any suggestions whatsoever, you can find us also printondemancast.com/Instagram and printondemancast.com/YouTube, and also just printondemancast.com, which I don't know why I haven't created a little lower third for that yet, but it's there. And you can subscribe to the email list, which we won't spam you. We just send out a newsletter every week with an additional dad joke, which speaking of dad jokes, we almost forgot this week's dad joke. So I don't know how to weave it in subtly now, so we'll just do the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
So we're talking about blog posts. Now that I'm entering this setup, I'm thinking I could have probably done this subtly, but I'm talking about blog posts and writing and all of these kind of things. I'm crafting. I'm speaking at the church's creative night this Thursday, so I'm working on the talk that I want to give, and grammar and punctuation make such a huge difference, but especially when people are seeing the written word that you're sending out, like in a blog post. And one of the things when it comes to grammar and it comes to punctuation that I forget about is the colon. A colon can completely change the meaning of a sentence. So, like, for example, Jane ate her friend's sandwich, or Jane ate her friend's colon. So terrible.
That is bad.
So bad. Oh no. Okay, well, back to our regularly scheduled stream of consciousness. Thank you guys so much again for listening. Wherever there are podcasts, the PODcast is there for you. Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Google, Anchor, we're there for you. And so if you could do us a favor, if you're listening to the podcast app, I know Travis posted a shameless plug / shameless self-promotion post in the Facebook group asking for more reviews, and no one obliged. So we will just keep ringing that bell until someone maybe does. But the reason for the reviews are twofold, right? Obviously, we want to hear from you guys and see what you guys are thinking and get your feedback, as we expressed earlier in the show. But also from a back-end analytic algorithm standpoint, those reviews definitely help this content kind of hit the top of that search page when people are looking for something on the print-on-demand industry. The reviews definitely help us get kind of that first page landing and get this content into the hands of those that could use it. So to that end as well, if you're listening to the show and you know someone that could benefit from what we talked about, or someone that's thinking about getting into the industry as well, maybe, you have some friends or what have you, or you just think it's just good content to know about, you can share this episode as well. You can share the link, you can text it, post it to Facebook, send it in the email. However you guys get the word out, we are greatly appreciative of that, because at the end of the day, we just want to help people kind of get their footing in this industry that can be so incredibly overwhelming and daunting when you're just kind of stepping into the ecosphere, or kind of the e-commerce market space. It's kind of hard to tell which way is up, and so we just want to be able to help people do that for sure. So Travis, anything else before we wrap this particular episode up?
I don't think so. I think you got it all, man. Good job.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm surprised I got through it in a cohesive way, because I am running on faith and fumes at this point. Very tired. So, but thank you guys so much for listening. Till next time, for Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you right here on the Print on Demand Cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.